So my response to V's video got exactly the response I expected. Conservatives sided with V. They claimed that I was too hard on V, even though they support me talking the exact same way about lefties. They downvoted and brigaded the video. They called me a commie, grifter, and pedophile, as usual, and simultaneously told me to shut up, take the L, and reach out for a debate. Again, as expected, which is why I knew how V would respond. What I didn't expect was a 40-minute long video. Thought it was going to be a little bit shorter, so now I have the displeasure of having to listen to his and my own voice multiple times. V starts his video complaining about being able to dish it out but not take it, and then takes issue with me using his image from one of his own live streams. I wasn't aware he was so sensitive. That said, as we go through this video, I think people will understand the intensity of my initial response, because they will see that V's tweets and responses weren't as pure and made in good faith as you think they are. A perfect example is how he begins his response after his spiel about my video.
Now I am going to skip them, and I will not insult him back.
1 minute later.
Very cowardly, by the way.
Totally not an insult. By the way, that's a curious cell phone considering half your Twitter feed is nothing but quote tweets. Dude, the whole of this commentary sphere is people commenting on other people's comments. If you think it's so cowardly, why have you been doing it for over a decade? Do you think all your former Gamergate friends who do the exact same thing are cowardly too? What a weird cell phone.
That because I have a lot of subscribers, people message me and it's like, hey, this person is gossiping about you. And I'm like, what?
Come on, V. Come on. You too old for that. This isn't some gossip girl nonsense. You looked at the quote tweet and caught some feelings. You click the little arrows. It's no big deal. No one cares. It's not like it's some Twitter faux pas. It's fine.
I don't deem you the enemy. I'm an entertainer. Alright? Like, if I see you on the street, I buy you beer. It's what manly men do. I do not believe that people on the internet are my enemy. I don't do this, okay?
V, your entire Twitter feed and channel are full of you saying blue-haired lefties from the internet are the enemy of humanity and will destroy all of society. That's the talk du jour of everyone right of center. You don't have to take my word for it. Just go read Jordan Peterson's Twitter feed. You can't have it both ways. You made 2 videos where your whole argument was nothing but a Michael Richards rendition of, "He's a lefty! He's a lefty! He's a lefty! Look, he's a lefty." Kinda sounds like you think I'm your enemy.
What enemy? Like, we are not fighting a bat. This is not a war. I do not have generals and officers.
No, I believe the correct term is groupies. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys think you're fighting a culture war, right? And wars are usually against someone, are they not? And you're trying to defeat that group, right? You're not trying to talk to them because, as you said in your previous live stream, these people can't be reasoned with. So what are you trying to do?
The bukkake of likes must flow. It is social media. We are content creators. If I do not want clout, then what am I doing there to begin with?
I don't know. Put better ideas out in the world covered in a sea of blue-haired madness? Are you clout chasing? I would hope that that's not what you're doing, because clout chasers tend not to believe the things they say. They tend to jump on the popular thing of the day. Do you not believe the things you say? Are you just, dare I say, grifting? Unfortunately for V, I have too much dignity to pay for Twitter, so I couldn't properly respond to him on that platform.
Well, yeah, I know. I mean, you wouldn't want a platform that doesn't censor people who disagree with you.
No, like I said in my previous video, I like to be thorough, and Twitter has a character limit.
This is why I pay for Twitter. I support Elon Musk.
Elon Musk. Elon Musk. Oh, you mean Phony Stark, the guy who just reinstated an account that regularly posts illicit images of children. That's the guy you support. The guy who reinstates the digital chomo. Okay, to each his own.
I pay for Twitter with absolutely no shame, with absolutely no remorse, and the fact that it annoys other people who enjoyed the previous Twitter where any dissenting idea was banned.
Ain't nobody annoyed by you paying for Twitter. You can spend your money on whatever you want. I just find it funny that the people who complain about free speech don't have a problem being charged for it. I also find it funny that just before Phony Stark took over, y'all were complaining about the idea of having to pay to play. It seems like the only reason you support it is because it's being done by a guy who you think likes you. But every time he screws you over, and he's jiggered you raw a couple of times, y'all get mad.
I do not know whether to throw this on being disingenuous, or should I throw this on being a liar? But this would be the second maybe he saw the future.
No, it's 2, because live streams count as videos. And you made one right after our Twitter exchange. Here's a clip.
Today, I didn't criticize the content creator. He manifested himself into my DMs.
Before I suspected it, but now I know that you're disingenuous and a liar. And that's going to make this all the more interesting. He finally gets into my response and repeats this claim about people DMing him about my tweet. And I'm going to say it again. Stop. It's okay. You click the arrows on the quote tweet. It's a silly thing to lie about. Stop it.
It's like, I'm sure like you're not trying to talk to me and you're trying to insult me behind my back.
Dude, if I wanted to insult you, I would have done it. Nobody's talking about you behind your back, and even if they were, you don't have a problem with it because here you are doing it yourself. And like I said before, you've been doing it for a decade. Stop damseling. I thought you had a stupid argument. I pointed out why it's a bad argument. I know you're very sensitive about it, but it's the internet, son. You're gonna have to muscle up. Everybody's not gonna agree with you.
My live stream? Oh, well, I mentioned it. Yes, but that's not a video. That's a live stream. That's a different thing.
Yes, it's a different thing, like a live album is different from a studio album. They're totally not both albums. Dude, it's a video. Stop being pedantic. I get it, you're trying to score points, but it just makes you look silly.
Well, isn't it how it's done? Like for 4 minutes, you went for name calling and personal attacks and just learning from the best, from YouTubers that are bigger than me.
What are you talking about? You spent 2 videos taking shots at me for being the left, trademarked. I thought it only fair that I speak with the same candor. He goes on and on about this before getting to the part where I point out that people agreeing with his arguments doesn't make him right. And real quick, I'm cutting all that out because my man rambles. A lot.
No, but it's like a signifier, isn't it? Like when almost everyone universally doesn't complain over the fact that the left believes in equality and the right believes in equality, and when the overwhelming amount of people don't have to bring the Nazis and Jews and Marvel movies into every conversation, sure, you know, you're right. Maybe that doesn't necessarily say it's a bad argument that you did, but it's a very damn indication that it is probably a bad argument.
I'll listen to this 4 times and it still doesn't make any sense. V, just because a bunch of people agree with you doesn't mean you're right. But let's go through this piece by piece so you understand why your argument is so bad. 1. Where is your evidence that almost everyone universally agrees with your claim? Everyone doesn't even agree with the meanings of equality and quality, so how do you know that everyone agrees with the claim itself? 2. Where is your evidence that there are scores of people mentioning, as you said in your tweet, World War II and Marvel movies? 3. That the majority of people may disagree with an argument doesn't make that argument bad. I can give an easy example. Atheism. Most people don't agree with atheism. Does that make the atheist argument that there doesn't appear to be any evidence of the existence of deities a bad argument? I get that you don't like the analogy that I used, however it does explain why I think your argument is bad. All you're doing though is just saying that you're right because almost everyone universally says you're right. That's not even an argument, it's just an assertion. Then in response to my comment about Americans supporting something doesn't make it bad.
I pointed... Yeah, but it's like a very fringe, extreme group of Americans that support something. And when you go into other cultures, you do not see the same support for the same thing. And the fact that Americans support that something isn't necessarily grassroots. It can also be because it is dictated top-down by the academia, by the politician, by the Trust and Safety Council of social media, so on and so forth.
No, there was no fringe. You were talking about Americans in general. Now you're adding in these other groups, but that doesn't address the argument. Just because Americans, whichever ones you're talking about, support something doesn't make it bad. Again, that's just an assertion. You need to make an argument. First, what are you talking about? Second, why is it bad? That's the information I need to understand the point you're trying to make. Whether it'll help?
You know, you can, of course, say that just because a small amount of minority in America believes in something, that doesn't make it true. And my argument is that, well, just because the overwhelming amount of human population believes in something, it probably makes it true.
No, it doesn't. For example, the overwhelming majority of humans at one point thought the sun revolved around the earth. They were very convinced of this because they could see the sun rise and set every morning and evening. However, they were wrong. The sun doesn't revolve around the earth revolves around the sun. And the sun doesn't rise or set. Instead, it's the earth spinning on its axis that gives the illusion of the sun moving. Just because most people think something is true doesn't make it so.
Now, of course, you know, it's up for us to prove these statements, but I do think, like, my statement has a little bit more weight.
Of course you do, but that's just your opinion. You still have to prove that you're right, and you haven't done that. Instead, you've turned to groupthink and appeals to the majority.
God, listening to my voice is so annoying. Holy shit. You know what? I hope that just some guy suffers what I'm suffering right now, and he's going to have to listen to his voice in my video.
Oh, it's worse because I'm listening to you, listening to me, listening to you, and I have to edit this myself. Then he gets to the difference between quality versus meritocracy.
It's literally the same shit!
No. I could be that guy who quotes definitions, but I'll make this simple. Quality is what you possess, meritocracy is how you progress. They're not the same thing. The word you're looking for is merit, or really, skills, because you keep bringing up professions like this.
If you want to hire a chef, you hire him based on the quality of his cooking. If you want to hire a writer, you hire him based on the quality of his writing.
The thing is, I'm not talking about professions, and it wasn't clear from your tweet that you were either. I took your statement about people's equality and quality to refer to people as humans, as different groups, be it their race, religion, or otherwise. So I pointed out the best example of what happens when people think like that. You can get as pissy about that as you want, but that doesn't change how I read your argument. If only there were a thing you could have done. Say, clarify what you meant. I think if this were such an important issue for you, you'd trip over yourself to make that happen, not in a video hours later, but in your immediate response to my tweet. Instead, you went on some tit-for-tat nonsense and claimed that equality leads to genocide because of some stupid shit about two brothers.
And by the way, while I did talk about meritocracy, yeah, I think equality as a concept leads to genocide.
Really? So when black people in the US were finally granted our full rights in 1964, there was a white genocide? When women were allowed to vote in Saudi Arabia in 2011, the culling of men began. When gay marriage was made legal in the UK in 2014, there were scores of dead straight people in the streets. Yeah, I'm pretty sure none of that happened, yet all those events count as equality. What, are you about to wave around communism? Bet you're about to wave around communism.
I am basing this on the Soviet Union, the history of China under Mao, almost every other socialist country on earth. Yes, equality, treating every single person the same, not a good idea.
Just to recap, your whole argument before was that it was unfair to bring up any right-wing authoritarianism in Europe because that was dealing in extremes. And to prove that you're not being hypocritical, you bring up communism as your defense for opposing equality, as if it weren't an example of the very extremism you don't want to talk about. When I said in my video that this is what happens when someone is thoroughly indoctrinated, this is what I meant. You don't hear yourself at all. There is no aspect of treating people as equal that inherently leads to the horrors of communism. You need a system of control and power built around enforcing a very particular ideological framework in order to get to that point. Having little kids share toys won't make them commies. Treating black people as equal to white people won't make you a commie. On the other hand, if you treat white people as having more quality than black people, it will lead to discrimination because it's built into the mindset. These people are better than those people. How it manifests varies. If you apply this to artists, it may only mean that a person who isn't considered talented doesn't get hired. If you apply it to, say, sexuality, then it may lead to thinking certain people are a threat and need to be permanently dealt with. God, I wonder why that sounds so familiar. Incidentally, your little rant is exactly what I thought you meant in your tweet when you mentioned equality. You think equality is communism. That's part of the reason why I responded the way I did.
Because it's against human nature. And you know what it creates? It creates raging hypocrites. People that think they are better than everyone else because they believe in equality while not practicing it.
Man, is that the pot calling the kettle black? Your entire argument is that some people are better than others. If you agree with that, why would you be so pissy when someone else thinks the same thing? Is it because they think they're better because of what they do, versus you thinking people are better because of who they are? Because I got news for you, son. Both of those ideas are fucking retarded. They're retarded in different ways, but they're equally retarded. Having the right ideas doesn't make you a better person any more than being part of the right group or having the right skills.
I mean, just some guy. You made a video for 5 minutes here. Would you say that you're being charitable towards me? Would you say you are treating me the same as you are treating your close friends?
Treating you the same? No, I don't know you. Arguing with you the same? Yeah. I've gotten into many heated arguments with my close friends. I've also lost friends because we disagreed. That's life. What I don't do is pull this ticky-tack shit you're pulling for clout chasing. For example,
you have been very condescending.
From your first live stream.
This is the leftist buzzword. It's sickening. It is disgusting. Valuing, right? Like value as a human being. Respect as a human being. Okay. First of all, he didn't talk about respect. Like, that's another conversation. But usually respect is a two-way street. You don't respect everybody. Very rude. May I add disrespectful?
From your second video.
But it's a different way of thinking. Hey, if you want to run your business like this, I mean, you know, like if, for example, just some guy would want to hire an editor for his channel, and he wouldn't hire like based on how much the editor is charging or how well the editor is. Like he would just hire, it's like, all right, show me your family tree. I want to pick up the magnifying glass and I'm going to look through your family tree to see if you have like the correct genes so that we can promote diversity. You know, like that. It's a different way of thinking. Like, hey, some people want to run their business like this.
Now, I don't have a problem with this. I expect to be name-called and attacked. That's just how the internet works. My rule, however, is that I don't start it. I criticized your argument, not you. You decided to change the tone of the, I'll be generous, discussion, so I matched the tenor of the tone you set.
You're not treating me equal. And you shouldn't, by the way. Human beings do not treat people equal. You are treating me based on my value.
No, I'm treating you based on the way you're behaving. It looks like you're trying to find a place to stick a knife, so I'm keeping you at arm's length. Had you come at me otherwise, I'd be behaving differently. But now that you've shown me what you're about, yeah, my guard's up. It's not coming down. If that's a problem for you, you could always walk away.
Now imagine you had an ideology that would force you to treat me the same like everyone else.
You mean like Christianity, Buddhism, Judaism? Or are you still talking about communism? Because that has nothing to do with treating people the same as human beings. I haven't stripped away your humanity, I haven't taken away your rights, I haven't tried to get your channel pulled. Nothing has happened other than discovering that we don't particularly like each other. That's it. Treating people equally doesn't mean that they have to like each other, and doing this in no way leads to communism. I get that you came from that system, that the Soviets controlled Romania and turned it into a commie hellhole. That has nothing to do with what I'm talking about.
My ideology goes like, no, you should treat me any way you want me to be treated.
Yes, and when people tried that, it didn't end well. Here, let's use a recent example. Gay rights. Treating gay people however you want has resulted in them being victims of discrimination, prejudice, oppression, violence, and even murder. Why would this happen? Well, because some people view gay people as bringing no value to society. So to those people, whomever they may be, gay people's lives are forfeit. There is no act that could be done to them that is wrong, because in accordance to your ideology, they have no value. The basic principle I'm following, which can be found in many world religions and philosophies, is that all people have the same intrinsic value as human beings, and that they should be afforded the same rights and privileges in society and under the law. If someone follows this principle, then while they might not like gay people, might even hate gay people, they would still view them as equal as human beings, and that would at least curb some, if not most, of the discrimination and violence against gay people.
And by the way, even in the argument itself, even on Twitter, I talked about the decolonization. Like, if you want to make people equal, and some peasants have land and other peasants don't have land, the solution that the Soviet Union came up with is to genocide the peasants with land.
Again, that has nothing to do with the general principle of treating people equally. That is the result of an ideology taken to its utmost extreme. I don't support that and never would support that, so you are again arguing against this straw leftist in your head. I'm responding to the things coming out of your actual mouth. As rambly as they may be, I'm still managing to stay on topic. You are off in a la-la land of tangents. Come back.
It's a concept that I understand the Americans haven't dealt with. They haven't lived under a communist state. They have like a fictional, romanticized version of what it is.
Nope. I've read several books and watched many a documentary and interview about the horrors of communism in Russia, China, and North Korea. I just don't jump to the conclusion that, say, treating a disabled person like I would treat anyone without a disability is a stepping stone to communism. That's like assuming that because all the workers in the business are white, it leads to white supremacy. That's just silly.
You do not value an arsonist and a firefighter the same. This is not about jobs anymore. This is about content of character. One person likes to set fire to things. The other person risks their lives in order to put out the fires. Even though they're both human beings, we do not value them at the same level. One person should be elevated by society. The other person should be condemned.
But they should be treated equally as people. Just because someone's an arsonist doesn't mean you get to do whatever you want to them. The same way that just because someone's a firefighter doesn't mean they get a pass to do whatever they like. Again, we've seen what happens when people decide that certain people shouldn't be held accountable for their actions because they're better quality people. If you want an example of this, touch your forehead, your chest, your left shoulder, and then your right shoulder. The leaders of those so-called quality people, who declared themselves such, have gotten away with some terrible things because they hide behind a veil of value.
Notice How in countries that are revolutionary oriented, like look at what happened in the Soviet Union when the left did its revolution, or look what happened in China when they did the revolution, you will notice that the roles are inversed. All of a sudden, the firefighter is viewed as the problem, and then the people setting the fire are being viewed as heroes.
V, you do realize I'm an American, right? My country exists because people set fires and overthrew the existing government to found one that they felt better represented them. Revolutions are by their nature contentious and usually result in violence, as you should know from the Christmas Revolution in Romania. However, violence isn't limited to one political side or one ideology. Any group that seizes power has the potential to become violent, just like any group already in power has the potential to become violent. So then he finally gets to trying to explain what he thinks is steel manning the left's position.
It's identity politics, literally.
Yeah, that's not what I asked you to do. I asked you to steel man the left's argument, not peddle talking points. I already agree that there are plenty of people on the far left who are riddled with identity politics, but we're not talking about the far left. We're talking about the left in general. Can you tell me their position in a way in which they would agree accurately describes their position? Or are you just going to keep equating the most bonkers progressives with anyone left of center? Then he goes on this tangent about identity politics in the workplace.
All of this is not in the name of equality, because when you look at a company, it needs to have the correct percentages. Like the same number of the demographic in the nation has to be equally represented in that company. And this is why they hire based on pedigree and heritage rather than on merit.
You aren't going to get any disagreement from me that that's a stupid practice. But again, that's not what I asked you to do. I asked you to steel man the left's argument. You're still just peddling talking points. You're doing it well. They're just rattling off the top of your head. I'm sure plenty of people are going to think you're owning the libs. But those paying attention will realize you're not addressing anything I actually said.
I do think it has something to do with something you said. I had to explain why equality is a bad concept. How can I do that? Well, I had to take a 3-minute skit, make a funny joke, try to get people to understand.
No, that makes it sound like you're just trying to save face because you got called out and you don't actually know what you're talking about. I know you've got your narrative. I'm asking you to explain it, but it seems like you're incapable of doing that. What, have you never actually thought about it? Did you just glom onto it because it's anti-communist and never bothered to ask what it was you were supporting? If you don't know what the people you don't like actually think, if you can't even explain it back to someone who agrees with you about them, don't you think you might want to ruminate on that for a minute?
If you hire an editor, you should hire him based on the value he brings with his edits. That's my point.
And my point is that the left in general isn't specifically or even mostly talking about jobs when they talk about equality. This is insane. It's like we're driving down the same road, you want to merge into my lane, I give way, then you veer off into oncoming traffic. I get that this impresses conservatives who want to see you own the libs, but it's not impressive if you do that by crashing your car.
Look at it, he's doing it too, right? Like he's doing it too. You could have gone for the easy win, but instead you just play for the audience to get the bukkake of likes.
Nope, I knew they wouldn't like it. That's why I went in dry.
We're both doing it. See, this is why I don't really have that much respect for left-leaning oriented people, because I see a common trend. Okay, like they preach and they shame others on how to behave.
Dude, you were just shaming people for the kooky hairstyles and the pronouns. In your previous video, you were shaming people for their body size. Right now, you're shaming people for not following your politics. You can't dunk on people and then get pissy when they tap your ass back. This is a problem with ideologues on the left and on the right. You're the thinnest skinned shit talkers imaginable. You spend all your time judging and shaming other people, and then the moment someone goes, you know, you're one to talk, you fall to the ground faster than a footballer at the World Cup.
But then they don't listen to their own advice.
I mean, the lack of self-awareness is just staggering.
I don't really like hypocrites. You know, at least I admit, yes, I'm here for the likes. Yes, I'm trying to be entertaining. Yes, this is what I do. But you're like above it. No, you're the philosopher. You're like, well, you know, I'm going to be a gentleman and I'm going to be nice about it. Then let me spend another 3 minutes on trying to insult him.
You tried to be funny, but you can't recognize a joke when you hear it. That sounds like a problem. Maybe you should stop watching Steven Crowder and watch a competent comedian.
You literally believe that under every single right-winger is a Nazi. This is why you bring up the World War II arguments everywhere you walk.
Show me where I've done that, V. You can go to my Twitter feed, you can see my videos. You might catch a handful of references to the crowds over the years. This isn't a thing I do, son. It's just what you think the straw leftist in your head does. And because I'm left of center, I must be the same. This is just lazy. But I get it. You're doing it for the lulz and the clicks and the clout. But none of that matters to me.
But then they'll say, oh, why aren't other people interested in debates when I just go around and imply that they're Nazis?
What are you talking about? When did I ask for a debate? Again, just pure straw manning. Keep in mind, dude, in your first video, you said this type of conversation was better done in private, which is why you took it to your live stream to talk about it. If you wanted to have a conversation, you could have said so. You didn't. You're clout chasing. You're not listening to what I said in the video. You're just straw manning. What would change in a debate?
Why aren't other people engaging with me properly when I just try to slander their name and insult them the first thing I do?
Would you prefer an Emmy or an Oscar for that little performance? I challenged your idea, son, not you. And you can't make that complaint when your own argument was a dig at the left, equating everyone left of center of being communist, as you admitted in this video. You can't get mad that others aren't engaging with you properly when you're insulting anyone who doesn't support your politics. Like I said, you can't have it both ways.
Like a cinema? Like, aren't we seeing the biggest projection here? Like, why are you making this video, if not to get likes from your left-wing audience?
I made it to respond to your video. I'm not trying to impress some left-wing audience. I understand that a lot of right-wing YouTubers are just grifting, which is why they and their audience are so quick to accuse me of doing the same. But I'm not. These are my actual opinions I actually hold. And I don't run and make videos because I think anyone from either side of the political aisle might give me a reach around. I'm not you, so stop projecting.
The difference between you and I is that I'm not criticizing you for it.
Dude, your entire video is criticizing me for criticizing you. Again, the lack of self-awareness is staggering. You took a Twitter spat and made 2 videos out of it, and now you're ass mad that I responded. What, did I cut too close to home?
You know, I'm tolerate. Why can't you be more tolerant, just some guy? Why can't you tolerate other people for doing the exact same thing you're doing?
You're just full of fallacies, aren't you? Well, I guess you gotta cough them up sometime. Go ahead, I can take it. If I were half as intolerant as you think I am, my Twitter feed would look like it was written by Jordan Peterson. Like I said before, you can't be this thin-skinned. So finally he gets back to the video to defend his nonsensical comment about 2 brothers.
Why am I talking about it? Well, it seems I need to remind just some guy that our point of contention was the fact that you didn't appreciate that I do not respect the concept of equality. So I made a skit when I used it as a joke to point out why equality is ridiculous.
That's not a skit. That's a random comment. Apparently a bastardized version of something Thomas Sowell said, and has nothing to do with my point.
Right? This is what communism actually teaches. Now, if you are being lost with this, maybe you should study your own fucking ideology a little bit more before getting triggered that right-wingers don't respect equality.
And this is what happens when someone is so deep in the echo chamber they can't even see the walls. Where, or rather from whom, did you get that I support communism? Because you definitely ain't get it from me. You're not going to find a single statement I've written or uttered that comes close to anything like that. What you're doing is going after the straw leftists in your head, and now you're frustrated that I won't defend positions I don't support. And I have people saying, "Oh, dude, he owned you. Take the L." This is owning me. He's just making shit up. And understand, I'm not angry about it. I feel sorry when someone is so wrapped up in an ideology they can't see past it.
Maybe you should read some papers about diversity, inclusivity, and equality, and then read some more about diversity, inclusivity, and equity, so that you can understand what I'm talking about, so that when I'm talking about this shit, we're on the same page.
If you ever watched any of my videos or read my Twitter feed, you'd already know I'm well versed in the insanity of what happens with identity politics. To even begin to believe that I support this stuff is just further proof that you're arguing with some straw leftist in your head. And at this point, I don't think I need to take you seriously anymore. You're either grossly uninformed, misinformed, or disingenuous, or some combination of the 3. But either way, I think you've proven after 25 minutes of ranting like this that you're arguing in bad faith and just doing it for the clicks.
Your definition of quality and equality do not seem to align to those of what the academics are saying.
Which academics? Name them. I think Thomas Sowell is one. Who else? Tell me the papers and books I should read to better understand your position and what you think explains my position, and let's see how much you screwed that up.
I didn't say that every human being is exactly the same. I said that not every human being has the same value.
Yeah, you did argue that you think equality means that everyone is supposed to be the same, or at least be treated as if they were the same. You tried to support this with examples of chefs having skills, and brothers being different, and communists forcing people to like strangers as much as their mothers. But none of that is what the left in general is talking about when they talk about equality. You're just enamored with this straw man you keep attacking.
This is the problem. He assumes that the people who created the ideology of equality, which are Marxists.
V. The idea of equality of all people didn't just pop up in the late 1800s. The idea of legal egalitarianism dates back to ancient China, and the modern concept of social egalitarianism was born during the Age of Enlightenment, which predates Marx by 100 years. Everything isn't Marxism or communism, dude, and it's painfully obvious that that's not what I'm talking about. You've got to get out of your own head and pay attention to the argument actually being made, not the straw man you want to fight. For example, when I say that the left's position is that all people have the same intrinsic value as human beings and should be afforded the same rights and privileges in society and under the law, his immediate reaction is to go,
"No, that's not. I'm sorry, literally, that is not. They do not believe in that. The left believes in diversity, inclusivity, and equity right now."
"No, it's not." See, I can do that too. If you said that what you described was a progressive position, or people even further to the left of them, I'd agree. But to claim that anyone left of center holds those views, no, that simply isn't true, which is proven by the number of left-leaning people who reject those ideas. As they've come to push back on them, the far left have begun to lose ground. However, I do understand it makes for a good boogeyman, kind of like how some people always claim the right's position is now fascism. It's a quick and lazy way of dismissing the argument, scoring some backpats, and not having to think about the words coming out of your mouth. He then moves on to responding to me making fun of his sick burn about World War II and the MCU.
I mean, there are other regimes that exist right now in the world. There are other dictatorships that are doing atrocities right now. Those are never brought up.
3 questions. 1. Why does anyone have to use a modern example when older examples are more well known? 2. How many of these modern regimes and dictatorships go on and on about quality human beings? And 3. How come your little rule doesn't apply to any mention of the Soviet Union, which collapsed over 30 years ago?
My main man, please don't have main character syndrome. I do argue with other people on Twitter as well.
But you didn't direct your lukewarm take at other people. You directed it at me. So maybe you might want to take your foot out your mouth.
So you're saying that the debt that the Weimar Republic had to pay to the Allies for losing a war, that's not the reason for World War II.
No, Kathy Newman. Unlike you, I understand that there were multiple things that led to Germany's descent into madness, and one of them was the rise of eugenics and thoughts of racial and cultural superiority. These didn't magically appear overnight, but developed over time from the late 1800s, finally gaining solid traction in the 1920s and spreading across most Western countries. The fall of the First World War made Germans susceptible to these ideas, as many of them bore a cultural and national shame over their defeat. To act like there was one cause for the Second World War is to completely fail to understand history, and to pretend I was suggesting anything close to this completely misses my point. Like I said, you're just flailing at a straw man.
Do you know that throughout human history, even the concept of equality didn't exist?
Where did I say that everyone everywhere supported equality? And didn't I just tell you that the modern concept of egalitarianism was born out of the Age of Enlightenment? Now, for those people who say I should debate this man, how am I supposed to debate someone who's having a losing battle with a straw man in his own head? What am I supposed to do with this? Honestly, that's not a rhetorical question. Answer the question. How do I debate someone who's basically debating himself? Why should I impose myself into that mental masturbation?
They didn't believe in equality. Like this is such a new concept. And to claim that this concept is responsible for World War II shows such a significant lack of understanding.
See what I mean? I argue that his concept for quality people sounds similar to ideas floating around Europe in the early 20th century, and he claims that I said that equality caused World War II. Where did I say anything remotely close to that?
Tell me the difference between Nazism and fascism. I would be shocked if you know. I don't believe you know what ideology the United States used to have during this time. You have like this very simplistic understanding of history that comes from Twitter.
Says the guy who thinks treating people equally is communism. If ever there was proof of Twitter brain, you are it. If you're so concerned about this, why didn't you just ask me about my knowledge of those things? You're doing what most conservatives I've ever interacted with online do. Assume that because I don't agree with them, I must be ignorant of the facts. And when I show that I'm not, well, I must have been brainwashed by leftist propaganda. Like I said in my previous video, there is no reasoning with someone who thinks like this. And I imagine it's just going to get worse as he wraps this up, because he's got that straw leftist in an ankle lock and he ain't letting go.
This is the vibe I get, and I do think that you believe any right-wing person, regardless from what place of the world they are, that they're a secret Nazi in disguise, and that World War III is literally around the corner if more people start talking freely on Twitter.
Again, see what I mean? Based on what he said, I would have to think the conservatives who run Israel love the funny mustache man. Does that make any sense? At all. But it does fit his narrative and gets him clout, so just throw it out there.
Right? Like, you're probably the beacon of peace, the paragon of justice that is preventing the next genocide from happening by calling out random twats on Twitter.
Yes, V. I am vengeance. I am the night. I am just some guy. Oh, you're sad. So sad. Funny. I mean, I'm getting all my crunches in today, but also sad. Thanks though. I've never had a chance to play the intro twice in the video before.
Literally, like he thinks. I think like he is the guardian of Jewish people. Like if you had a time machine and just sent some guy back into the past, none of this would happen. The World War II would not take place.
Dude, I'm black. I ain't traveling back any further than 1973. It's never gonna happen. I could literally be the guy everybody thought would prevent the whole thing from happening. I'm not going back. The moment I set foot in 1930s Germany, all I'll hear is, "Despicious," and I'd be dead. I wouldn't even be able to say a thing. I'd be killed and they just sprinkle sauerkraut on me. No, not happening.
I'm pretty sure the United States believed in equality when they fought the Nazis. But it is true, like the communists also won, and then they had the Cold War with the United States, and then the communists lost.
Yes, because in the 1930s and 40s, the US was just a bastion of perfection. Every single person who had a lick of skill and talent was judged by their merit. Proof of that was the great American military, which totally didn't have racially segregated units and totally didn't treat all black units and servicemen as being of lesser quality, as humans and as soldiers, than their white counterparts. Oh, wait. That actually happened. Shit.
There is also the concept of freedom and liberty that's more important than equality, but...
What good are freedom and liberty if people can usurp them by treating you differently? This is one of the key principles behind the civil rights movement and a core principle of the Declaration of Independence. If you're not willing to treat people as equal, to treat them as having the same values as human beings, then freedom and liberty are nothing more than lip service. We are equal, and therefore we are entitled to the same rights and privileges as each other. We have the same intrinsic value as humans. This is the same argument made by civil rights activists in pursuit of protecting black people's rights. We will be free when we are equal, not just under the law, but as fellow men. I don't know why you would sit here and try to play this game with American history, but it's a stupid game to play. Speaking of stupid games, he keeps equating equality to communism.
I literally said that the modern left believes in equality. That is Marxism. Like, I'm sorry if you didn't get the reference.
You claiming that doesn't make it true, any more than that straw leftist in your head saying that the modern right believes in equality, and that is fascism, makes that true. You sound exactly like the woke leftists you hate.
Even if you were to go with that and you say that, well, the Nazis believed in equality and that's what started World War II, I would disagree with that take as well. The Nazis believed on racial hierarchies.
And why did they believe that, V? Wasn't it because they thought certain people had better quality than others? Didn't they think that certain ethnic and racial groups, which incidentally includes yours, lacked those qualities? You're making this argument without even realizing what you're saying. If something is superior, what would you base this on? How would you know? Is it not its makeup, its value, its quality?
Do you know what modern ideology also talks about racial hierarchies? It's not the right wing, I'll tell you that.
Oh, yes it is. You don't have to take my word for it. Just go read the comments on your boy Sargon's Twitter feed every time he posts any video about black on white violence. There are lots of comments about how this proves that they were always right about black people. Whatever could they mean? Then he gets to the part where I asked him for an example of someone following his idea where quality didn't result in discrimination or oppression.
Any ideology on planet Earth results in prejudice and oppression. Like you cannot even create an ideology that wouldn't have oppression.
I'm not asking about any ideology. I'm asking about yours. Telling me about how France bans the burqa has nothing to do with your ideology, unless you're claiming that France is enacting your ideology with this ban. If that's not your claim, then you're just playing whataboutism. Can you give me an example of someone doing what you want to do, judge people based on their quality, where it didn't result in discrimination or oppression? It would appear the answer is no, because you ramble on about France for 2 minutes. This has nothing to do with your ideology. Stop dodging the question.
The world is not so simple. It's not in black and white. There are sometimes factions of people that are diametrically opposed, and you gotta side with one over the other. And thus you'll have oppression. Every ideology, every country, every nation throughout human history, throughout the world, has not been able to fix this.
Who claimed that the world was black and white? Who claimed that people never need to make difficult decisions? You're the one bringing this up because you're trying to deflect my question. I didn't ask you about anyone else's ideology. I asked about yours because you claimed that you could have equality without genocide. Those were your exact words. I asked for an example of this, and you've rambled for 3 minutes about France and Britain. Can you not provide a single example of someone playing out your equality concept without it leading to discrimination, prejudice, or oppression?
However, to go from that and to claim that just because oppression and prejudice exists, genocide will always happen, that is a stretch that I disagree with.
Where did I say that? When did I claim anything close to that? What I said is that you can't have equality without assuming some people are more valuable than others. One of the extremes of where that leads is to genocide, and there are plenty of examples of it. I could stick to the United States to prove that, so it'd be real unfortunate if you mentioned my country again.
The United States, before World War II, didn't have any genocide.
I'm sorry, what was that?
The United States, before World War II, didn't have any genocide.
No, I'm a trifle deaf in one of these ears. Could you say that one more time?
The United States, before World War II, didn't have any genocide.
That's what I thought you said. The Native Americans, if there are any of them left, would love to have a conversation with you. You might ask, where did they go? Why? The white people killed them. There were millions of people already in the Americas when Europeans arrived, and Europeans systematically wiped these people out. Some of it through direct conflict, a hell of a lot more of it by spreading diseases, sometimes by accident, sometimes on purpose. You went on a rant before about how I don't know basic history, and yet you, who is so well versed in American history, don't know something as basic as what happened to the Native Americans. There's been no American genocide. Or is it that you don't consider this a genocide? To say something this ridiculous destroys your credibility. I know a bunch of conservatives are giving you backpats on how you owed me, but you just embarrassed yourself.
And it also didn't believe in equality.
Are you really explaining U.S. history of equality to a black dude? Like I wouldn't know my own country's history about how they treated people like me. Okay, as you do. Rebecca Romaine explained it to me.
Their ideology, from your point of view, would be considered right-wing as fuck. Like, the people that stormed the beaches of Normandy are so right-wing that they would look at me and they would probably call me a left-leaning degenerate.
Probably, yeah. They were far more conservative then. So, for example, if you support women working, support interracial marriage, support racial equality, and don't think religion should be the cornerstone of society, they'd probably call you liberal. Yet those things I said, minus the religion, are moderate right-wing positions now. Who could have guessed that what counts as left and right wing shift over time?
And yet, I believe that their ideology is the one that didn't cause genocides. Unlike the communists, unlike the Nazis, unlike the fascists, their ideology was the correct one that I would side with.
Their ideology led them to think it was okay to chase black people out of towns in the South. These were called sundown towns. Basically, white people would attack and kill any black person, male or female, old or young, who was in one of these towns after sunset. And many times, the police either turned a blind eye or were involved. Many of the men who stormed the beaches at Normandy would have gone ballistic if they had been stationed with black troops. That doesn't deny their heroism or sacrifice. I am here because these men, really boys, died as they stepped off the boats. And as proud as I am of their sacrifice as an American, I still have to acknowledge as a black man that if I met any of these men at the time, I'd be lucky if all they did was refuse to shake my hand. Their ideology was not perfect. It was better than the one that they were fighting, but it still had terrible aspects to it, and pretending that it didn't is dishonest and disrespectful to the men, women, and children who suffered under that ideology.
Given the chance, if you could go back in time and live in the Soviet Union where they championed equality as a state religion, or you could live in the United States where those evil bigots that stormed the beaches of Normandy were, who believed in equality, by the way, I think you would choose the United States. I would do too, by the way.
Yeah, dude, I'm black, so I'm fucked either way. The difference is whether I'm just fucked with people who look like me, or is it with everybody. I'm not going to be having a good time either way, but if I had to pick, I'd go with America. 1, because I wouldn't have to learn a new language, and 2, because we have better music and food.
I think it was a great system, even though it was too right-wing even for my tastes. However, it didn't lead with genocide.
Genocide? No. Oppression? Yeah. And we've got thousands of dead black people to prove it. Then V goes back to this arsonist firefighter thing.
Like, the moment a person living in a society decides to be a detriment for the society, like, for example, commits arson, then yeah, he has less value than the firefighter. This is why the arsonist gets locked up. Like, his human rights get to be infringed.
Except the arsonist doesn't lose his human rights. Again, this is so inherent a principle in American society that it's covered in the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th Amendments of the Bill of Rights. I can see that people have a visceral negative reaction to criminals and will see them as less valuable or as less human. I'm not going to pretend that I don't do that myself. However, that reaction doesn't change that any criminal, yes, any criminal, has the same intrinsic value as human beings as you do. And so they are still equal to you as human beings, no matter how monstrous you find them. No one's saying it's easy to follow or practice, but it's a very good ideal because it reminds us to be careful of how quickly we devalue other people, because eventually it might be us.
But then you also have changes in legislation in California now, for instance, where if a criminal steals less than $1,000 worth of good, the police isn't allowed to arrest him. That type of stuff. That type of ideology, where you treat criminal as the victim, makes society become the victim.
I agree that the new shoplifting laws are a stupid policy. Look, I understand you don't like criminals. Most people don't. No one's saying that you have to like them. However, that doesn't mean that these people don't still have the same intrinsic value as human beings as you and I do.
Because now you have entire stores, even CNN made an article, where entire stores have locks on them.
Oh dude, you haven't lived until you've had to call a clerk to unlock a plexiglass for a goddamn toothbrush. This is the stupidest shit I've ever seen in a store. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy, and I don't like it.
Now, if you like living like that, but I have a feeling it's not in your backyard, so you probably don't care.
Nope, live in Chicago. Walgreens, CVS, Walmart, Jewels. Maybe you should just stop assuming you know anything about me, because it's really not working out for you, son.
Yeah, that's fine. But the only way to get there is with the ideology that, yes, everyone has value. Even the criminal has value.
That's funny, because we've thought criminals had value as human beings prior to 2020, and we weren't experiencing anything like this. I agree that the ideology driving this "let them do it, it's just things, let them do it" mentality is jacked, and is very much coming from the far left. All I'm saying is that that doesn't represent the general view on the left of what constitutes equality, and so far you haven't proven that it does.
But yeah, no, like, my assessment is that just some guy has a very flimsy understanding of politics, and he likes to dabble into political takes on Twitter, which is fine, by the way. But this is why, like, you're going to run into misunderstandings.
And my assessment of you hasn't changed. You have been thoroughly indoctrinated, and you're just repeating what you've heard from right-wing content creators and commentators. Outside of your understandable criticism of communism, you seem to avoid any critical analysis of ideologies, especially those you support. You can't explain them outside of superficial details. You are woefully ignorant of American history and politics, but very confident that you know what you're talking about. And when challenged, you'd rather confront a straw man than respond to the actual argument. And this is exactly the exchange I expected, which is why I quote tweeted you instead of trying to talk to you directly, because you are incapable of having a straightforward conversation or debate. You're just trying to score points and own the libs. And I'm sure you're going to get lots of clicks. I'm sure everyone's saying, "You destroyed him, you owned him." But you really just embarrassed yourself. You have no clue what you're talking about. I've given you all the time you deserve, and a hell of a lot more that you don't. And now I'm done. I'm sure you're going to clap back and own me again. By all means, get showered in that bukkake of likes, because you're going to need something to cool your fragile ego. But what do I know? I'm just some guy.